really unpacking and understand who I am and why I am the way I am.
You literally have been on this journey. Like, yes. I have watched you.
Yes, that's right. So like, whether it was books or the Enneagram or counseling, like, and it really made me, I think, a healthier person. If it's changing this part of my whole life in this way, would this change if I ask questions about money?
Everyone, and welcome to the Christy Wright Show. I'm so excited because today we are talking about some things that you need to learn how to do, and you may not even realize it. And then later on in the show, I get to sit down with my good friend in real life and #1 New York Times bestselling author, Rachel Cruze, and we're going to be talking about her new book, Know Yourself and Know Your Money, and what you need to know about it. But first, let's talk about some things that you need to learn. Now, y'all know I love a good running example. Let me just take you back to middle school, okay? When I was in middle school, I joined the track team, partially because I was cut from the basketball team, the soccer team, and the cheerleading team, and track team didn't make cuts. Yeah, they let me stay on. So I stayed on the track team. The only thing is, this was my first real sport experience, and so I didn't have anything to compare it to. Well, this is how it went for practices. Our coach would literally hand us a piece of paper that had drills on it of just repetition of certain distances. So it would say do 8 100s, 4 200s, 2 400s, 1 800, go home. That's it. He didn't coach us. He didn't tell us what to do differently, how to improve, didn't time us, nothing. Literally, we would all gather after school to get our instructions for track. He would hand us a piece of paper and say, good luck out there. Y'all, it was so boring. It was terrible. I didn't get any better. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just did the laps feeling completely purposeless. Well, fast forward to high school. I get to high school. I decide to run track again, but this experience was completely different. This coach was very hands-on. This coach had a full plan for us that included hill repeats, different technical drills, different strides, weight room, tons of variety to make us better runners. And then here's the other thing he did. He actually taught us how to run. Now, I know that seems crazy. You're going like, don't you know how to run? Like, doesn't everybody just know how to run? Aren't you born knowing how to run? It's kind of like that with a lot of things in life. There are things that you're just expected to be born knowing how to do, like run, like have a good marriage, like sex, right? Like, no one teaches you this stuff. You're just supposed to know how to do it. And it's like this with running as well. You're just expected to know how to run. So the fact that I learned how to run in high school seems weird, but I did. What's amazing is he would teach us different things to do with our drills, with our strides, how to extend our stride, how to even control our breathing so that we were more efficient with less effort. We could run faster and harder with less effort. We even did this one drill where he would put crackers in our hands. Have you ever seen this? And we would have to do sprints around the track. So I'm running as fast as I can, but you can't break the cracker. If you came around to the finish line and your cracker was broken, you had to do it again. Why is that? Because you don't want to lose any energy with clenched fists. You're wasting all this energy with your fists being balled up tight, and you're not putting that energy into your legs propelling you forward. So he taught us to run with loose hands, loose arms. And one way we do that is with running with crackers. All of these different things that he would try to teach us and train us to be better runners. And you know what happened? I became a better runner. Once I learned the form, running was easier and it became more fun. Y'all, I wanted to run everywhere. I felt like Forrest Gump. I would just run across the parking lot because I could, because I was fast, because it was fun, because I enjoyed it. It's amazing that when you learn how to do something you didn't know how to do, that you thought you knew how to do, it becomes a lot easier and a lot more fun. And you can do a lot more with it. But you know what? There's one more thing that we are just expected to know how to do when we're born, and that's manage our money. So many of us never learned how to manage money growing up. And you know what? If you never learned how to manage money growing up, then you never learned how to manage money growing up, which means you don't know how to manage your money. And you're feeling your way around in the dark and you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're barely getting by and you're trying to pay your bills and you're dreading those bills coming in your mailbox, coming in your email box, and you're barely keeping your head above water. And you just think, this is as good as it gets, right? And then when you look around you to all your friends and culture and everyone around you to see like, how am I doing? Well, that's what they're all doing too. They all are just, credit card bills. Oh, just put it on the credit card. Oh, well, you just finance it. Well, no down payment, no interest. Yeah, it's so normal that you never question that what you're doing is the wrong thing. You never consider there's a better way. You never consider that you could learn how to manage your money in a way that you would actually have some. You never consider that if you were to learn how to do this thing, learn how to really manage your money, it would, similar to me in track, it would be more fun. You would actually want to do it more. You might actually want to do a budget once you learned how to do a budget. You might actually want to save and spend less once you learn how to save and spend less. You might actually enjoy your life and your money more, and by the way, have more once you learn how to manage it. I don't know what you learned about money growing up, but I just want to encourage you that despite what you see in headlines, despite what you see on Instagram, despite what you see in your friends or celebrities or everyone around you, you don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. There is more for you than just getting by. There is more for you than dreading bills. There's more for you than getting paid on Friday and all of that money goes backwards to bills and credit card payments and things you bought in the past. There's more for you than that. You can learn how to manage your money. You can learn how to live on less than you make so that, guess what? You actually have some money. Yeah. Because see, the trick to having money is not just making more money. It's spending less money. And that's hard. But when you learn it, you realize you can do it. You feel more powerful, you feel more in control, you feel more proud of yourself, and you feel more hopeful about the future because you realize that the person in control of that future is you. My experience in middle school of running on the track team was completely different than running in high school on the track team. In middle school, I just went through the motions and never got better. In high school, I actually learned how to do something I thought I was supposed to know how to do, but apparently didn't. And I got better. And I performed better, and I enjoyed it more. The same is true for you in your money. When you learn how to do this thing that you thought you knew how to do, or at least thought you were supposed to know how to do when you were born, when you actually learn how to do it, you will perform better. Your bank account will show it, and you will actually enjoy your life more. All right, y'all, I'm so excited because I asked my very good friend, Rachel Cruze, to come back to the show. Welcome back.
Yes, thanks, Christy. Thanks for having me.
This is so fun. So you have a new book. So I was like, you have to come back. You have to tell us about your new book. It's not out yet. But look, we match. We match the cover. Navy and teal.
All of it.
It's like we planned it. We did not. Know yourself, know your money. You've written other books before this about money. This is different. Yeah. So tell me why you wanted to write it.
Yeah. So in my own life, probably about 3 years ago, and it's funny because we are friends in real life. We always say this.
I know about
Christy's
this.
like been on this journey with me. But really unpacking it, understand who I am and why I am the way I am.
You literally have been on this journey. Like I have watched you.
Yes, that's right. So like whether it was books or the Enneagram or counseling, like unpacking who I am, why do I do the things I do? And that self-awareness, using that, not just for self-awareness sake, but to say, okay, I'm going to apply this to my life. And it really made me, I think, a healthier person. And I feel like I was a better wife, a better mom, more engaged in my friendships. I think a better sister. Yes, all of it. Like it just really changed my outlook in my relationship. So I thought, okay, if it's changing this part, that my whole life in this way, would this change if I ask questions about money? Why do I handle money the way I do? Yeah. So it kind of took me into this black hole of like all this stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, this is huge. Because I've been talking about money for a decade now, but I haven't asked these specific questions to myself, let alone what I teach about. And so I thought, gosh, this has to be a book because I had so many moments where I was like, wow, okay, I'm seeing this about myself. I never would have said that before, but this is true. This is why I do the things I do with money. And so we talk about personal finance. It's 80% behavior. It's only 20% head knowledge. And so if understanding about money is just like a small part of it, your behavior is huge. So in order to change your behavior, you have to know why you're doing the things you're doing.
Yeah.
So I walk through all of that in the book, and it's so fun. It's so fun. I love this because I'm kind of going under the surface.
Right.
Like that's
The why.
The why. So it's not just the how-to. Like we talk about how to budget, how to get out of debt at Ramsey Solutions, and we're the best at it.
Yeah.
And we talk about the how-to, but we never ask the question, well, why?
Yeah.
Why did I get into debt in the first place? Why do I spend money the way I spent it? Like asking the why questions has been huge.
You know what's so interesting as you talk about this, and I feel like I've talked to other authors that their first couple books kind of start that way, where it's very tactical, it's how to, and then it's almost like the second or third book that they write goes deeper because they realize, oh, if I could ask an even deeper question, I'm going to fix the how-to. And I think a lot of people, especially with money, they keep running into dead ends over and over and over again. And they think, well, it's just my boss's problem. I just don't make enough money. It's this problem. It's that problem. You know, my cable's too expensive. They make all these excuses. And in this book, you're saying like, no, understand yourself, because the common denominator in your life and your money is you.
That's right.
So if you can fix it here at the motivation level, then it's going to change how you approach the how-to. Now, you posted something today on Instagram. And I was scrolling through Instagram this morning when I was putting on my makeup, and it has 2 graphics of a gas tank. Okay, so one gas tank is like maybe got a quarter tank missing, you know, so it's 3/4 full.
Yeah.
And the line below it says, we need to fill up soon. And then the next gas tank is like almost empty. And it's like, we have plenty.
That's right.
And it's like, which one are you? I was like, oh my gosh, that's my husband and I. Exactly. Literally, it will be on empty. And I'm like, we can coast on fumes for a good 20 miles. And he is like, maybe half a tank. He's like, we need to fill up. And so,
Totally, yes.
but it highlights that we have different mindsets.
Yes.
About scarcity versus abundance. That's one example. But you go into several differences in how people approach money. And I think we're so obsessed as a culture with personality styles, but we don't talk about that in relation to money. And you do. So talk a little bit about what are some of the differences in what you've seen and how people handle their money.
Yes, well, I love this, like the tendencies. So there's 7 money tendencies. And one of them, for instance, is when you spend money, do you spend it on more experiences or things? Okay. And so just being able to communicate that, have language to that is so important, because the moment I did that, when I said that out loud, I was like, because I can go back, you're going to laugh at the story because you know it. I could go back to when Winston and I were our first year of marriage. Like we got married young, we were on a super tight budget. And when we went out to dinner, it was like a big deal. And I would be like, okay, I want a glass of wine. I want an appetizer, an entree, and the dessert. Even if we're like at Chili's or wherever we are, but I want like the whole thing because I want the whole experience. Right. Where he literally wouldn't buy a drink.
I remember this, he wouldn't buy Cokes.
Yeah. No soft drinks, no wine.
I was like, you need to talk to him about this Coke thing. This is a problem.
He would not buy a drink at a restaurant for the first year of our marriage. Because in his head, he's like, that glass of wine or that Coke, I could buy a 2-liter or a full bottle of wine for that price. Like to him, it was like, and to him, it's like, no, I would no, that makes no sense. Why would I do that? And I'm like, why would you not do that? Oh yeah, we laugh because I'm like, Winston drank water. Like the first year of our marriage out to dinner. But again, and now that I pinpoint, I'm like, yeah, because he doesn't value experiences. For him, water's just as fine as a glass of wine. But I'm like, no, I want like the whole experience. Yeah. Like he'd rather have light bulbs that attach to Alexa. So he can like walk in and be like, Alexa, turn living room on. Right, like he'd rather spend money there than going to the zoo with the kids, right? Or that sounds terrible. But like, you know what I mean? Like he values
the tangible.
Actually things, because he's like, I work hard for something. I want to use it and see it.
Right, it doesn't disappear when the dinner's over.
That's right. It's so utilitarian to him. But for me, I'm like, experiences all the way. So again, being able to understand that about myself, that's why I prioritize certain things in our budget over others. Yeah. So naming that and then having the empathy of other people in your life. Yeah. One's quality versus quantity.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about this one because Matt and I are so different.
Yes. Okay. So Winston is quality. Yep. What's Matt?
Matt's quality.
He's quality,
But I've noticed that I remember a million years ago when you and I were both speaking on money, like back in the early days, before Ramsey Personalities, when we were just teaching on money, I was doing research for something. It was one of the talks I was giving. And I saw something back then. This is super old research, but typically women spend more money on smaller things more frequently. Men spend larger amounts of money less often. And so it was just interesting because that's very much Matt. He will buy a super nice coat or super nice watch once a year. Yes. And I'm at TJ Maxx because I want new purses every season.
That's right. You know what I mean? Right. Or earrings, right? You and I love 18,000 earrings, and they can be like you $15 or less.
That's right.
And that's all we need. Yeah.
That's right.
And but knowing that, like I went to the beach with some girlfriends and we were at dinner talking about where we wanted to stay. And it was so funny because like half of the table was like, okay, let's stay really close to the beach in a really nice house. So we're not all cramped up. Like that's relaxing to me. That
you were in that camp.
All of it. I want
all day long.
Quality. I'm like,
Totally.
and I'll go less time.
Right.
In order to have like a really nice vacation. Where the other girls were like, no, let's go for 5 nights. We can all pile into a room together.
Yes.
Go cheap and we can be far from the beach. It's fine. Like we'll figure it out. But we want to go for longer. So quality or quantity.
Yes.
And to pinpoint, I'm like, okay, sitting here, you've been planning a beach trip. This comes into play. So again, understanding it and yourself helps you, but also the people in your life.
Okay, so let's talk about this idea of where our motivations come from. Let's kind of back out of that because I think a lot of people, they don't learn about money growing up or they don't talk about it. They don't learn about it explicitly, like their parents sit them down and talk to them about these things. So where do you think some of these values are kind of created or cultivated as we grow up? How do we establish these beliefs or values around money in our adult life so we have something to talk about, so we know what the language is around it? Like, oh, I feel this way because of this.
That's right. Well, this is a very like psychologist answer and it's so boring, but it's true. Like so much of who we are, it's so 50-50. Of nature versus nurture. So part of it is how you're wired. You're naturally going to be bent for probably a little bit more scarcity, or you're naturally a saver. It's like literally your personality, your DNA, and who you are. And then a big half is how you grew up. So understanding your money classrooms in your childhood is a big part of this journey. So
what do you mean by that, about money classrooms? What does that mean?
So there's 4 money classrooms I talk about in the book. And so what they're dictated by is that money is communicated 2 ways. One, verbally, just obvious communication, and then emotionally. Was it stressed or calm? And what that does is that kind of creates these 4 quadrants. So there's the anxious money classroom. And this is if you grew up in a home where money was never talked about, but there was a lot of stress and friction and intensity around money. But you never knew why exactly because it was never talked about. Then there's the unstable money classroom. This is where it was verbally open, but the emotion was high stress. So you probably heard your parents fight about it. Maybe a family member fought with other family members about money. Lots of conflict, lots of fighting. And there's the unaware money classroom. So this is where money was not talked about, but emotionally very calm. So it's almost like your head was in the sand because you didn't even think about it. Everything was fine. And then there's the secure money classroom, which is probably it's the healthiest and one that I push people to put their own family in to work towards it. And this is where you're emotionally calm, but verbally open.
Oh, that's good.
And so you can say, you know what, I'm in control of my money. I'm here, but we're talking about it. And so each money classroom has its weaknesses that you have to overcome. So what I find is people either mirror similar, like of how they grew up, because it's all they know, or they do the complete opposite.
Oh, okay.
And they say, oh no, I heard my parents fight about money, so we're not even going to talk about it. I'm shutting down. I'm not having conflict with it. We're not going to talk about it. You deal with it. I'm not worried about it. Or some people it was never talked about, and they're like, no, like I need the communication around it. Or they tend to not talk about it. So I find it's kind of this extreme stance, but it's true. So people either take a lot of what they learned about money and applied it to their own life, or they did the complete opposite.
That is so interesting. Even as you're talking, I was like thinking of people that I know that have done that. But I think that's really good for us to understand where it comes from, because then it gives you some framework to talk about. Because Matt and I, we've done it. We've kind of fumbled through these conversations, figuring it out as we go, but we'll have to get to that level. We're going, okay, why do you think that? Well, why do you believe that way? You know what I mean? I remember having a conversation with Matt about some expenses a couple years ago, and he did not want to spend the money. Not a shock at all. He is the saver in our relationship, which I need. But I remember being like, well, I just see money as real fluid. Like it comes out, it comes in and goes out again. He's like, you do see
That is true.
But it's an abundance mindset. It's like we can go get more, and it's more the spender or whatever. Okay, let's talk about the person that, regardless of what quadrant they're in, let's say they're in one of the unhealthy quadrants, or their personality style, it's like it just has some real flaws to how they handle money. And they read this book and they're like, man, I kind of suck. You know what I mean? Like I'm not real good at this. How do they fix it? Like becoming self-aware is the first step of like, wow, I have some problems. I have some, I certainly know my blind spots. I can be a spender. I can be careless. Matt can be too close-fisted and that type of thing. How do we get better and get to a healthy place, or move quadrants, if you will, like you said, from what we grew up with?
Yeah, I think there's like tactical things you can put in place. This is what I teach a lot on, but like having a budget, right? Having guardrails, having boundaries, having conversations with your spouse about money, actually engaging it, talking about it, having people in your life, having tools around you to help you tactically, whether it's apps or books or whatever. Like there's tactical things you can actually do, which start to work. But I think before that, you have to ask the question why. And I'm like, go down the trail, like do it.
Why? And keep asking why.
Yes, and I did this to myself, even like during the pandemic. I would just find myself on Amazon and like adding to cart. And I finally, as I was like looking at the final of this manuscript, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing what I talked about in the book. But I'm like, I literally did. I was like, Rachel, why do you want to buy that? Sometimes the answer was like, I'm just bored. And I'm literally filling my time. And I'm
Same.
And I'm like, why am I okay not being bored?
Right.
And then I start asking that question because I'm nervous to sit there with my own thoughts. Why? Because I'm starting to feel like, I'm like, oh, because I'm starting, like you can go down this like, this emotional road, which is really good. Or like, sometimes I'll be like, okay, why am I buying that? Because I feel like I need a new shirt. Why do I feel like I need a new shirt? I have so many shirts in my closet because I kind of just like want the newness and that feeling when I open the box, when it gets here, that feels really good. Well, why does that feel good? I don't know, because it's filling something in me. Like, but ask. Because I think our money problems masquerade as money problems, but they're life problems.
Yeah.
There's so much of who we are that ends up of why we handle money the way we do.
It's reflected that way.
Yes, so ask the why. So there's tactical things you can put into place which help and work 100%. But until you can get to the core of why you're doing the things and asking, do it. And it's amazing yourself. Like you can have a great counselor to help you walk through things, but just asking that why question over and over and over and over and being vulnerable for yourself to open yourself up and being honest with it.
Yeah. Okay. This may go back to the budgeting question and even communicating it, which I know you teach a lot in your other books and in everything that you do. For people that are married and they did marry their opposite, which a lot of people did, and they have opposite upbringings, opposite beliefs, opposite values, opposite personality styles, how can they be a team, act as a team in a practical way when they're so different and their values are different? Matt and I were even talking the other day about like, okay, for our next big financial goal, is it going to be replacing your car because it's starting to get high mileage, or are we looking for something different, in the future, maybe moving, that type of thing? And so it's not a negotiation and it's not even conflict based.
Yeah.
But we value different things. He sees cars as being sold at this type of mileage. I'm like, oh, well, you can drive a car into the ground. You know what I mean? Like even how long you drive a car before you sell it, these are different values and different belief systems.
Yes.
So how can people act as a team, be a team, when they're coming from different perspectives and personality styles?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think there's a level of empathy you have to have. And so I think that's one thing the book does, is it allows you to see other people why they are the way they are. And when you start to say, okay, I can get in a fight with Matt on like, oh yeah, mileages and all of this, but I'm like, okay, but I want to know like why do you value that? Okay, because there's probably a level of security and safety he has thinking that the car is going to sell at X amount. Okay, well, why? What if it sells a little bit less? Are we going to be okay? Like going down that path. And what that does is it brings empathy in. It brings to see, okay, I'm starting to see life in your shoes. And I think so many times we think, even though we say like, oh yeah, there's not a right or wrong, we really believe there is a right or wrong.
Yeah,
it's like, no, the way I do it is right or wrong. But to say, I'm gonna open my tunnel vision and actually bring that other person in. And then I think also in marriage, seeing that money is the problem. The money cannot be in between us as the issue. That's the issue over here.
Or set it aside,
Set it aside. And so working as a team to say, okay, you know what, maybe this time we're gonna do what you say is best, and I'm gonna trust that in you. Hopefully you're at a place in marriage, not you, but the audience and everyone watching. There's a place in marriage that I'm going to trust that in you. But hey, next time we go about this, can we look at this thing too?
Yeah.
Like a little bit of a trade-off. Not that someone is going to like lose or win. It's not that it's not that battle, but it's to say, okay, as a team, I have to be able to empathize and see what you're saying. And then tactically we're going to implement things, and maybe there's a give and take.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're losing and they're winning.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I've tried to do something recently, and I think I've done it almost accidentally, but it's in an effort to be more empathetic, because of course all of us only see our perspective naturally. Like we're always going, well, why don't you see this the way that I do? Or why don't you handle this the way that I do? And I'm an Enneagram 8. And so I'm like, well, I'm right because I'm just right. And Matt's like, well, I'm a 5 and I'm right because I've researched it enough. I have all the facts to back me up.
That's it.
But one of the things that I've done recently is if I get frustrated with something that Matt's done or something that he thinks or some perspective he's coming from, I try to ask myself, have I ever done that? You know what I mean? Like, and this is so silly. Like the other day, he went to the store and didn't come home with one of the things that I needed. I was like, oh, I got to go back to the store to get the one thing I need. How could? And that same day, Rachel, I had lost his debit card. I was like, well, I lost his debit card.
Yeah.
So maybe I can just settle down about the peanut butter. Maybe I can just settle down.
Maybe I'm okay.
Maybe I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
It's like, but I love this message of what you're teaching people to empathize, because especially, I mean, not to take this off track here, but in our world, which is so polarizing, and it is so heated and so extreme, it is so easy to dig your heels in and say, I'm right, and this problem is between us, whether it's the budget, the values, the car decision, the peanut butter, whatever it is.
Right.
And it really does put a wedge between marriages, and you've seen this with money fights and money problems being the number one cause of divorce. And so I just love how you are teaching people to know themselves so that they can have better conversations around money and actually bring people together.
Yes,
on this topic.
And there's a whole section on this, and just grace of that. When you make a mistake, specifically a money mistake, because it's a money book, what do? How do you extend grace? Because there's a level of grace that if it's just too much, and the factor of like, you just keep excusing it for your own actions or someone else's, it becomes enabling, and you don't want that. But there's also a place where it's like, no, the rules have to be X, Y, and Z. When they're not X, Y, and Z, you get
Is that one of the personality styles?
Yes, you get so legalistic.
Okay.
So there's a level of like the amount of grace you give yourself and others. So it's like the legalistic scale or the enabling scale, and where you fall and understanding it. Because again, there's a middle ground that I think is pretty healthy, because when you're so legalistic, you lose relationships. Like, right? Like if you were like, you just the peanut butter, like, right? And it's
how could you?
Yeah, and there's no grace, never any grace. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people that live with that black and white perspective, they take the rules over the relationship, and it's really sad. And then there's the enablers where it's like, oh yeah, I mean, if he, again, silly example, but I'm like, if he forgets something every single time he goes to the store, there's a level of like, hey, there's a level of responsibility. Like, I need you to read the list when it becomes a thing every time you go to the store, right? Like, like a level of like, like, let's talk about that. Let's dig into that. Versus just saying, oh, it's not a big deal. Because there's a level of like, it gets inconvenient when it's the same action over and over, that same mistake over and over. So there's that, even that trajectory of your grace and where you are with yourself and other people.
I love how you talk about this too, because I think one of the things it does is it creates an opportunity for appreciation for someone that's so different than you.
Yeah.
I remember sitting down with Eve Sarrett, who you and I both know and love from Young Life. And it was early on into my marriage, and she said something to me that was just such brilliant advice. She's so smart. She said, Christy, I want you to know that the thing that you love the most about Matt will be the thing that drives you crazy. And it's so true. I love that he's steady and practical and unwavering, and he's there for me. And it drives me crazy that he's steady and practical and unwavering. And so I think it's so interesting, though, because everything about his personality in relation to money or anything else challenges me to be better in those areas, and vice versa. And I, like, you use the example of grace. Matt is so much better at grace than me. Like, when I screw up, he is so quick to be like, it's all right. And when he does the time, I'm like, do you remember in 1997 when you, I would just like to recall the list. And it's like, oh, I need to learn from him. I need to be so much better. And so I just love how you're showing all these different approaches and personality styles, the money tendencies, and it gives you an opportunity to know yourself, but also appreciate the other person and learn from them as well.
100%.
I know so many people want to know where they can get it. It's not out yet, but it's coming out very soon, so tell them all about it.
Well, it's so great because it's still in pre-sale right now when you're listening to this or seeing this. So you can get the book plus the audiobook, ebook, and a video lesson from me all together for just the price of the book, which is awesome. So Know Yourself, Know Your Money. You can get it at rachelcruze.com or anywhere books are sold once it comes out for sure. And
when does it come out? What's the release date?
Yes, January 5th.
Okay, January 5th. Start the new year.
Feels like I know, fresh new year.
Your money.
21.
Know yourself, know your money. Discover why you handle money the way you do and what to do about it. I can't wait to read it. Rachel, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, y'all, I would love to share with you a verse from the book of James. You've probably heard this verse before, but it's so perfect for what we're talking about today. This is James 1:5. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. Now let's talk about the verses that come just before that. This is talking about trials and struggles. It says, consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And then it goes on to say, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him or her. Here's the reality. You and I are so good at trying to fix things ourselves, aren't we? Like, I don't know if you're like this, but when I face a problem, I immediately go into problem-solving mode. I work a plan. I get a to-do list. I look at my calendar. I am checking boxes, Googling, making phone calls. I am on the hunt to fix it. And time after time, I have run into dead ends in my life. I have gotten to a place where I'm trying something and it's not working. I try something else and it doesn't work. I try something else and it doesn't work. I'm trying to persevere. I'm trying to be persistent. I'm trying to be a problem solver. And I just keep coming up empty-handed. And it's interesting how after days of this or weeks of this, sometimes I will have this epiphany of like, oh, I don't know. Why don't I pray about this? Why don't I ask God about this? God, who has been watching me just spinning my wheels down here, Googling and fixing and calling and checklist and to-doing and all the things. He's probably going like, hey, I'm right here. I'm right here. Happy to help. I have lots of good ideas. I have lots of solutions for your problems. I am actually a great problem solver. I'm a great provider. But I'm so quick to try to do everything myself. I'm so quick to try to pull myself up by my bootstraps and fix everything. And sometimes that works out for me, and a lot of times it doesn't. And the reality is, if you're in a place where you are struggling financially or any area of your life, there are things that you can do to fix it. You also can seek wisdom. You can also ask God, who gives generously without finding fault, and He will meet you there. He will provide for you. He will provide information, resources, steps. He will provide discipline if you need it. He will provide discernment. He will provide correction. I don't know about you guys, but I have at times in my life sought God for an answer, frustrated with whatever was going on, and I have gotten my hand smacked. He's put me in my place when I needed to be put in my place, brought a different perspective, conviction that I needed at that time, knocked me off my high horse that I had just gotten on. Whatever you need, God will give it to you. He is a good God. He's a good Father, and He loves you, and He loves you as His child. He doesn't want to just provide an emergency exit for what you're struggling through. He wants to show you a better way of doing things so you don't get yourself in these tough situations to begin with. He'll let you and I make mistakes, but He's also there for wisdom when we need it so that we can correct those mistakes and not make them in the future. So I want to give you some questions to think about. And maybe it's in relation to your finances. Maybe it's in relation to something else you need to learn how to do. Maybe you need to learn how to be a better parent. Maybe you need to learn how to be a more supportive spouse. Maybe you need to learn how to have a better attitude at work. Maybe you need to learn how to manage your money. I don't know what that is for you, but I want you to know that you can learn it. So here's a few journal questions as you process this and pray about it. Number 1, what do you sense that you need to learn right now? What's an area of your life where you've been trying to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you've been hitting dead ends, coming up empty, and you're going, okay, I need some help. I need some outside help with this. The same thing keeps happening over and over and over again. I need some wisdom. What area of your life do you need wisdom and help right now? Write down your answer. Number 2, I want you to think specifically about your money. What do you want to be different about your money? Maybe next year. What do you want to be different? What needs to change? Think about your financial situation and really zoom out and look at it objectively. Get out of the day-to-day weeds of bills and the day-to-day grind and barely getting by. Let's look at this from a different perspective and say, what needs to change? What do I wish were different about my financial situation? Write down your answer. All right, your third question is super practical. What are you going to do to learn something new? What are you going to do about it? If you want to learn something new, if you need wisdom, if you need help, if you need something to change, what are you willing to do about it? How are you going to seek God and seek outside help and resources to get you past the struggles that you're in and get you to where you want to be, financially or in any area of your life? What are you going to do about it to learn the things that you need to learn? Write down your answer. All right, let's pray as we wrap up. God, thank you that you are a good God and you give us wisdom when we ask. When we need something, you're there. You don't turn us away. You're not too busy. When we seek you for wisdom, you are more than willing to meet us there and guide us. God, when we seek you with our life, whether it's our financial life or our relationships or our plans or our work or anything, you won't let us go wrong when we're seeking you. We can trust that. Our only job is to seek you. And then we take action based on what we feel like you're leading us to, God. We're going to work like it all depends on us and pray like it all depends on you. And we're going to need both. And God, I just pray for everyone watching right now that they would feel compelled to do both, that they would work and do what they can on their part in their life, that they would take personal responsibility for their mistakes or their situation or things that they can do differently to improve their life and steward what you have given them well. And I pray that they would seek you. I pray that they would look to you and seek you for guidance and wisdom for all of those things, for every area of their life, and know that, God, that you are a good God that will answer those prayers. You will provide wisdom when they need it. God, thank you that you love us. Thank you that your plans for us are good. Thank you for all that you've given us. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you all so much for joining me. And of course, you can join me next week for another episode of The Christy Wright Show. And as always, for more encouragement on building confidence in yourself and the God that created you, you can visit ChristyWright.com.